I remember a year ago around this time, a lot of people were telling me, oh, Vince Williams next year. Wait till he makes that leap. G.G. Jackson. Wait till he makes that leap. Now, this year, this summer, right now, the conversation's been a little different. Some people have talked themselves off of the G.G. Jackson and Vince Williams fan bus. It might be too soon for that. Let's talk about it. Coming up here on Locked On Grizzlies.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am your host today, Damichael Cole, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal right here in Memphis, Tennessee. Thanking you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies with us each and every single day. I'm going solo today without my co-host, Joe Mullinax, as he gets a well-deserved day off. So you guys stuck here with me on today. So look, we're going to make the most of it. We got a lot of good things to talk about, particularly with the guys that we mentioned in the opening, Vince Williams, G.G. Jackson. I've watched the tenor of the conversation change on these two guys drastically in the last year, and it's only right that we talk about it and break it down here on Locked On Grizzlies. But again, thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies. Make sure you continue to like, rate, comment, and subscribe anywhere and everywhere you get podcasts. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever you listen, wherever you watch, Locked On Grizzlies is there. So make sure you continue to tell a friend, and tune in with us on Locked On Grizzlies. Now we got to get into it. Because we got to talk about, we ain't talking about the stars. We ain't talking about the rookies that stood out in today's episode. We're talking about a couple guys who I remember last time around this summer. You can go pull it back up, and a lot of you guys remember this as well. Last year around this time, everyone was so excited about the potential of G.G. Jackson and what he could be. And then Vince Williams, right, came on last season, played a bigger role. Last season, as in 2023, while everyone was out injured and whatnot. And I remember the fan base just like, man, those two guys, when Ja's healthy, when Dez is healthy, when Jaren's healthy, it's going to be a sight to see. And those guys got healthy. Dez, Ja, Jaren. But some other factors factored into the fact that we didn't really get to see the G.G. Jackson and Vince Williams thing play out like many hoped to before the season. And now we're in a position where some people don't even know what to do with G.G. Jackson and Vince Williams anymore. I got people telling me like, oh, we should trade them. I got people saying, no, they're still young. Let's let this next season play out. I'll take my stance in the second segment. So you want to hear my stance on those two guys. It's coming in the second segment. But right now, we're just going to talk about this journey between these two guys and how they've gotten here, what's happened, and whatnot. We're going to start with Vince Williams Jr. because he's the older guy. And I'll add in a couple of small minor updates as well through this segment as well. So, stay tuned for that as well. But anyways, Vince Williams Jr. You go back a couple years ago. Well, his rookie year didn't really play much. And then year two, gets a bigger role because of all the injuries, right? This is going to be the same theme we talk about when we get to G.G. Jackson. Gets a bigger role because of the injuries and comes on strong. Comes on so strong, you got people throwing out, I'm not even going to say his name because, but Mr. First Team All Defense, they were throwing him out there because of the grittiness that Vince Williams played with, the tenacity, his approach, how defensive-minded he was, his willingness to do the dirty work. That was a key phrase that he used in his second season. Just talking about Ja's going to do this. Dez is going to do that. Jaren's going to do this. I want to do the dirty work. And there was a game. You go back to the 2023-24 season where the starting lineup was Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Vince Williams was the starting three in between the core three. Jaren Jackson Jr., I believe Bismack Biyombo was starting at center then. But look, those were rough times for the Grizzlies. But I digress. Vince Williams fit at that time. This was last December, fit like a glove in between those guys. Matter of fact, this is Ja's first game back, so I can tell you exactly what it was. It was December 19th of 2023. Yeah, 2023. December 19th, 2023. Ja's first game back from that 25-game suspension. Vince Williams starts at the 3, fits like a glove in between Ja, Dez, and Jaren. And people are like, man, that might be the guy right there. We might not need to trade for that superstar forward. We might not need to wait on Marcus Smart. We're talking about how it was a few years ago. We might not need to trade for, this big forward. We might not need to play Marcus Smart a little bit more. Vince Williams is here. He's here to stay. He's here to play. He's our guy. But time goes on, and those guys get hurt. Vince Williams gets put in an elevated role, continues to play decently well. In fact, shows off a playmaking ability that made me most excited about what he could bring to the table. Now moving on to GG Jackson, because we're going to talk about his rookie season as well. We talked about how not Scottie Pippen Jr., Jalen Wells and Zach Edey, first team all-rookie this past season. GG was on the second team previous year. He was second team all-rookie in 2024, and he did that by pretty much he didn't start playing until mid-January. This is when Marcus Smart, Ja Morant got hurt. Both got hurt in the earlier part of January. GG Jackson starts to get some minutes then, gets bigger minutes in February, really gets some minutes in March. And boom, next thing you know, second team all-rookie, one of the best scoring rookies in the league at that time. And credit to my co-host, Joe Mullinax, who's not here, so I don't want to put too many words in his mouth. But when everyone was beating the GG Jackson drum, Joe was pushing back a little bit. And Joe loves some GG Jackson now, so I want to say that. But he was pushing back a little bit, saying, we haven't seen GG play winning basketball just yet. And that kind of proved to be true this season. We'll get to that in a second, but the first thing that kind of derailed GG Jackson and Vince Williams this past season was injuries. Both guys were hurt before the season started. They did not get, I don't know if you want to call it a fair shake because it is the NBA and it happens, but they just didn't get a normal transitional period where you come off of seasons like they had. GG Jackson scoring the basketball at a high level, getting that confidence. Man, I can score in the NBA. Then putting on some weight, putting on 15 pounds of muscle. Or in the case of Vince Williams, showing that he can belong. And then boom, foot injury. Boom, foot injury. Stress reaction. Both guys go from being out the beginning of the season. We didn't see GG Jackson, I think, until late January. We didn't see Vince Williams until November. But when we saw Vince Williams in November, it was 3 games. Saw Vince Williams for 3 games. Boom. Grade 3 high ankle sprain. You heard me. Grade 3. Not a little itty-bitty little tweak. He didn't play again until February. From that point on, both guys were playing catch-up in the rotation. Talked about it a lot. In the case of Vince Williams, he kept saying, I'm about 75%. I'm 80% now. Vince Williams never said he was 100% at any point last season. I mean, this past season. I want to get those 2 seasons. He never said that he was 100% at any point this season. And guess what? As I've been, doing my little off-season talk or whatever, I'll put it like this. I got reason to believe that he'll be 100% coming into this upcoming season. So I've been, boots on the ground a little bit, and I got reason to believe Vince Williams will come into this offseason. If everything else goes according to a plan, we'll go into next season. We're not going to say, Vince is he's 87% now, or he's 92%. He's getting there. He should be ready to roll. GG Jackson, his season ended a little bit differently. So while I was with Vince Williams, the Grizzlies were talking about, we want him to be as healthy as at the end, right? We want him to be the healthiest version of him by the playoffs. And he never got there. Vince Williams never got there. In the case of GG Jackson, when the Grizzlies needed other scorers, they were giving him opportunities and things like that. But if you look at the numbers, this is what the numbers say, and this is some of the numbers that the Grizzlies use. GG Jackson's defensive numbers were among the worst on the team. He graded out as one of the team's worst defenders, and we know how much Taylor Jenkins emphasizes defense. So that led to Taylor Jenkins. We saw it. GG Jackson was demoted to G League, essentially. Went to the G League to get some work in. Tomasi Salo gets the coaching job. Gigi Jackson comes back up with the Grizzlies. Still doesn't play much. Did not play much for the remainder of the season. Didn't really get a chance to be in the rotation the rest of the way. And that was that. So the point is, neither of those guys really got a big experience. And that's why it's puzzling to me to see people hard on the fence either way, honestly. To see people say, oh, yeah, these are our guys. These are still core guys. Or to see people saying, trade them. I don't want them anymore. To me, they're some of the biggest unknowns on this Grizzlies team. I can't 100% adamantly predict what's going to happen for either of those guys next season. I can tell you what I think. I can tell you how I feel based on talking to them, based on talking to people around them, based on what I see. But when the ball tips and the Grizzlies rotation gets set, it's kind of hard to tell when it comes down to those two guys. We're still figuring that out. But we're going to talk more about, where those guys stand with the Grizzlies. Should they be parts of the rotation going forward, or a step further, should they be on the trading block? Let's talk about that next, coming up here on Locked On Grizzlies. But before we get to that, today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Betterhelp. Look, this show is sponsored by Betterhelp. So let's talk about something that doesn't get talked about enough, and that's men's mental health. There's this pressure to always keep it together, to perform, to provide, and to never show weakness. But the truth is, real strength comes from opening up and taking care of your mental well-being. Every year, 6 million men in the U.S. experience depression, and many go undiagnosed. But talking to someone, a friend, a loved one, or a therapist can make a huge difference. With over 35,000 licensed professionals, BetterHelp makes it easy to find a therapist who understands you. You connect from anywhere. You can switch therapists at any time. You may say, oh, I don't want this therapist. I don't want that therapist. I might want a therapist of a certain gender, of a certain race. However you want it, you can switch therapists at any time, and you can fit sessions into your schedule with just a click. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/lockedonnba. That's betterhelp.com, betterhelp.com/lockedonnba. Make sure you go check that out now. Trade or don't trade? We're talking about Gigi Jackson and Vince Williams, and I've seen some of the things people have said, about those guys. Again, it's not the same tenor of the conversation as it was before, last offseason. And that's what I keep going back to, because I remember when people were, these guys were virtually untouchables. But let's get into it, because I'm not going to waste any time getting my stance. I'll get to it early. I'll get to it quick. No, don't trade them. You don't trade Vince Williams Jr. right now. You don't trade Gigi Jackson right now. This is actually easy to me. This is not some difficult decision. Now, I get it. Some of you say, oh, we've probably seen the best of them, the injuries, they're not fits. You got your reasons. My reasons for keeping them, because I'm not going to contradict myself. I said what I said in the last segment. I said that there are some unknowns with these two guys coming into this upcoming season. As we go into the next season, there will be unknowns. But at the end of the day, we just talked about Oklahoma City yesterday, the Thunder, some of the things that they're showing, right? One of the things that I talked about in that episode, about how the Grizzlies can kind of learn from them, and just any team, and just period in roster building. You're always going to need some type of cost-controlled players to go around your stars to kind of, for lack of better words, just not be overpaying everybody. Or just to, not be a second apron team or whatever the case may be. And in the case of the Grizzlies, they're going to need those cost-effective players. We talked about the Thunder a lot. Think about a contract like Cason Wallace's contract right now. He's a first-round pick, so he's making decent money. But, that rookie deal, Jalen Williams rookie deal. Now, these are players with a little more, like a little more known to their games. But Isaiah Joe, what they're paying him now is, he got more money and Aaron Wiggins got more money. But last season when when this team was a 1 seed, Oklahoma City, and what they were paying those guys then, Vince Williams and Gigi Jackson, in theory, at their best, can be those guys for the Grizzlies. They can be those guys where you're saying, man, the Grizzlies are only paying them $2 million this year, and they're making a substantial impact. Why do I say that? One, because we've seen it. We've seen Gigi Jackson put up some numbers, and we've seen Vince Williams play with John Morant, Desmond Bain, Jaren Jackson Jr. against a good Pelicans team and help them win a game on the road in the starting lineup. We've seen that with Vince Williams. So with all that being said, if you get into the numbers, this is another reason. We break down the contract. One, the Grizzlies signed these guys in season a couple seasons ago. So they basically, when they did that, they ripped those contracts up. 4-year deal, because they were on two-way contracts. Vince Williams was promoted, Gigi Jackson was promoted. Rip those deals up, boom, here's a 4-year deal for you. The first 2 years of both of those guys' contracts are up. Vince Williams, 4 years, I think he's at $9.1 million. Gigi Jackson, 4 years, about $8.5 million. Both were signed using the non-taxpayer MLE. Now, here's the thing. They both have 2 years left on their contracts. But here's what no one's talking about. They have a club option after this season. The Grizzlies have the option after this upcoming season, based on what they see from Gigi Jackson, based on what they see from Vince Williams Jr., they can say, nah, wasn't enough. Decline club option. See you. They have that option after this upcoming season. I throw that on the table because I've only been covering the NBA for 4 seasons now. But I feel like that's enough data. And plus, I've talked to people about this in the league, around the league, all of that. Contract year, the whole thing about contract years is real. When people say, oh, players know it's a contract year, they got to play out of their minds, they're going to play through an injury to make sure they're available and things like that, that stuff is real. Whether you look at it in the Grizzlies' perspective, whether you look at it from other teams' perspective, go back a couple years ago when John Morant, if the off-court stuff doesn't happen, John Morant makes All-NBA, he gets that pay bump, added pretty much an extra $40 million or so to his contract, to his rookie scale extension. And basically up until March, when that incident off the floor happened, the Instagram Live video, he was on pace to do just that. You telling me that wasn't in the back of his head? You can tell me that it wasn't, but I remember being around John Morant when he said, oh, when I get that next contract, I'm giving everybody on the team Rolexes and things like that. So, yeah. Santi Aldama this past season. Santi just played his butt off. He was available. I remember seeing Santi getting worked out in shoot-arounds, getting work done on his calf muscles, getting stretched out and things like that, only just to miss one game or a couple games or whatever it was. But he did miss a lot of time. It's contract year. I got to get back out there. Remember when Jaren Jackson Jr. got hurt? There was a brief conversation like, oh, is he going to make it to 65 games? Never a doubt. When it comes to contract years, NBA players, they put their serious face on and they say, I got to suit up. I got to be available. I got to do what I got to do to get out here and show this team that, one, you don't need to let me go. Two, I got to get my coins. Paul George, to me, is the best recent example of this. And, Paul George got his money. Shout out to Paul George getting his money. But he is to me, the poster boy for recent years where I talk about how players gear up for contract years. Let's go all the way back to his first year with the Clippers. 48 games played. Second year with the Clippers, 54 games played. Third year with the Clippers, 31 games played. Fourth year with the Clippers, 56 games played. So going through his whole Clippers tenure at that point, 4 seasons, didn't play more than 56 games. Goes into a contract year, 2023, 2024. Want to guess how many games Paul George played? 74. Let me repeat the numbers again. He went from 48 to 54 to 31 to 56 to 74. And oh, by the way, when he got that nice fat contract from Philly, you get 41 games last season. So, look, sometimes injuries are unfortunate, and we talked about that. And look, that's part of it too. Like, guys get hurt. It's part of the game. It happens. But Vince Williams and Gigi Jackson, I have every reason to believe those two players are going to be extremely motivated to be the best version, to buy in, because money's on the line. You don't play well this season, the Grizzlies decline your club option. Sayonara, now you're fighting for your NBA life. You play well, they pick up that club option. Now you're getting yourself in position for an extension. Now you're getting yourself in position for other teams to say, hey, what's it going to cost to get Gigi off your hands? What's it going to cost to get Vince Williams off your hands? Or whatever the case may be, however that situation works out. But right now, no, I'm not trading those guys. Those are cheap contracts. You need cheap, affordable contracts around your core guys. Right now, you got Ja making a ton of money. You got Desmond Bane making a ton of money. You got Jaren Jackson Jr. about to make a ton of money. You factor all that in, you're going to have very cost-effective players around them, guys who aren't making, 15, 20 million, but who can play, at a reasonable level. And we've seen that from Vince Williams Jr. There's reason to still believe that Gigi Jackson has that in him. Gigi Jackson's only 20 years old. He won't be 21 until mid-December. So there's still reason to believe that those guys over the next 2 seasons can show you that at a very affordable price. Let me know what you guys think too. You might say, Damichael, I don't care about the money. I've seen enough. I don't want them on this team anymore. You might say, yeah, I'm with you, Damichael. They're big pieces to what we're building over the next couple of years. If you think that, let me know. Let me know what you guys think as well. But coming up here next on Locked On Grizzlies, we got to talk about one of the other rookies. We didn't talk about him much when we talked about Jalen Wells. We didn't talk about him much when we talked about Zach Edey. What about Cam Spencer? Let's talk about him coming up here on Locked On Grizzlies. But before we get to that, today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by OpenPhone. Look, if you're running a business and you know that every missed call is money left on the table, think about the last time you had an urgent need, maybe for a plumber, or it could be something like a service provider. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Nah, probably not. You moved on. And that's why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. OpenPhone lets me manage business calls and texts from a single app. The shared inbox feature is a game changer. Your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat. And their AI agent handles the after-hour calls, answers common questions, and captures leads, so you never miss a customer. OpenPhone is offering my listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonnba. That's OpenPhone, OpenPhone.com/lockedonnba. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Make sure you go check that out now. We got to talk about Cam Spencer. He's kind of like the silent guy. We talked a lot about Jalen Wells, what the next step looks like for him. Zach Edey, what the next step looks like for him. About Cam Spencer, because he's in an intriguing position. We talked about him a little bit, but two-way player, had some big moments. I mean, that Suns game is going to be one that's very memorable when you talk about what he did this past season. 16 points, 4 made three-pointers against the Suns, standing face-to-face with Kevin Durant, getting a laugh out of Kevin Durant. Just that competitive nature that he has. Rare. This is a guy who has straight up said he'll die on the court. With a serious face. Didn't laugh. There was no hyperbole. And he meant it. He's going to give his all. Zach Kleiman called him a grizzly bear. He called him players that Scottie Pippen's a dog. Zach Edey, Jalen Wells, those are dogs. Say Cam Spencer, that's a grizzly bear. So that part alone, you should be confident in the fact that the Grizzlies want Cam Spencer as part of their future. I am fully confident in saying that Cam Spencer should be considered a part of the Grizzlies' future based on what we know at this point. What does his role look like going forward? Now, this is where you got to go back to when Cam Spencer was drafted. You can even go back if you really want to trace it back, because we're going to tie these things in. You can go back to when the Grizzlies traded for one Luke Canard. February 2023, the Grizzlies traded for Luke Canard. Remember, that was the deal. They ended up moving Danny Green after he was rehabbing and all that, played a few games. They trade Danny Green. They go get Luke Canard. And Luke Canard comes to Memphis shooting the peel off the ball. And then fans find out what fans of the Clippers often complained about. Playoffs come, Luke Canard wasn't getting many shots up. Now, there was kind of a conundrum to this situation because when he was on the floor, the Grizzlies were better. Like, clearly the Lakers, that's who they were playing in the playoffs at the time. Clearly the Lakers were putting attention on him. But he wasn't really getting three-point shots off, and you were like, that's why the Grizzlies got him, right? And in the regular season, he was doing that. But then, last season was injury-prone for a lot of people, Luke Canard included. This season comes right here. The Grizzlies bring him back, one-year contract. And the aggressiveness just wasn't there. The accuracy for Luke Canard, and I don't want to keep harping on this. We've talked about it a lot at this point. Everybody knows where I feel on this. Luke Canard is one of the most accurate shooters I've ever seen in my life. Probably the most accurate. Like, if you told me right now, one guy's got to take a shot, your life's on the line, Damichael, I'm picking up that phone. Luke, come save me right now. I'm calling Luke Canard. But if you're talking about, it's got to be with a defender in front of him, step back and all that, got to create some space, might not be my call. So with all that being said, is they go get Luke Canard for his three-point shooting. They drafted Cam Spencer last summer, because he was one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA draft. You draft Cam Spencer, you bring in Cam Spencer, and I took that as he's the eventual Luke Canard replacement. Spent some time in the G League, came up a little bit, but he battled injuries too. Hand injury, ankle injury, preseason ankle injury, so I don't think he debuted until November as well. Like, these guys that we're talking about today clearly none of them got off to a straight start. None of them got full preseason games. And then, all right, let's go. Time to suit up. None of them got that. So with all that being said, what's next for Cam Spencer? One, I think a breakout summer league. I think we can talk about, like, Jalen Wells might get a few reps down there. Zach Edey might get a few reps, get in, get out type thing. We might see some G.G. Jackson. I know he wants to play down there, so we might see some of him. Cam Spencer is a guy I feel like, whether those guys are on the floor or not, it doesn't matter. If they're playing, he still should be getting up a bunch of three-point shots. If they're not playing, still should be getting up a bunch of three-point shots. And I'm going to tie this all the way back to why we were talking about Luke Canard, because that's what I've noticed. When we talk about Luke Canard, we talk about Cam Spencer. At least in the small sample size that we got, both are extremely accurate three-point shooters. Two of the most accurate I've seen in person. But Cam Spencer's going to let that thing ride. Cam Spencer's getting them up. Luke Canard said, not enough room for me. I'm going to pass it over here. Get back to me. I'm going to knock it down. Cam Spencer letting that thing go. Cam Spencer in the G League had 9.1 three-point attempts per game on 14 shot attempts per game. Luke Canard didn't attempt half as many three-pointers as that in the NBA. Now, difference in speeds and all that, and we didn't get to see much Cam Spencer against those type of defenses that Luke Canard struggled to get those shots off again, because at the end of the day, Luke Canard's a hooper. Don't get me wrong. Like, when they played the Spurs, Luke Canard was getting them up. When they played some other teams, it was against the more physical defenses where Luke Canard struggled, and that kind of became something that the Grizzlies were known for, because it happened with Santi as well. It happened to Ja to a degree. It definitely happened to Desmond Bain to a degree as well. Jaren Jackson Jr. Like, it became a Grizzlies thing. Well, Cam Spencer, with that mentality on both ends, I'm I'm excited about this guy. I want to put that out there. I'm very excited that he could show some growth. And I know there are people who are like, Damichael, I'm through with the youth movement. I don't think this is really a youth movement. This is a guy who came in the league 24 years old. This is some baby. This is a guy who's already got it mentally. He's there. He knows his role. He's not about to go up there and, hey, man, I'm bigger than the program. Cam Spencer is not that at all. The guy's not on social media, doesn't really care about none of that stuff. He's completely locked in on the mission. I need to get better. I need to help my team win by any means necessary. That's the type of guy the Grizzlies need. I think that mentality carries over to the summer, carries over to next season. And we'll talk about him more over the course of the offseason, but keep your eye on him. Looking for bigger things for him, especially as we get to Summer League. Thank you guys for making Locked On Grizzlies your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NBA Big Board Show. NBA draft expert Rafael Barlow reacts to every workout, interview, and rumor leading up to the NBA draft. Find Locked On NBA Big Board on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure you go check that out. Appreciate you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies with me on today. Me and Joe Molex will be back with you on tomorrow's edition. So make sure that you check that out as well. But until next time, remember that Locked On Grizzlies is free and available wherever you get your podcast. I'm Damichael Cole, and we'll see you on Locked On Grizzlies.